Is there a God?
What is this world coming to?
Am I really saved?
Who's the Antichrist?
When will the rapture happen? Am I actually doing what I'm supposed to?
Are we really in the last days?
Does God exist? What is happening?
It's PNR Open Line. Call 1-877-END-TIME to be a part of politics and religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. It's so interesting how that the events that capture our headlines one day can recede into the background, and all of a sudden a brand new burning issue comes surging to the forefront the next day. That's actually what we're watching right now. In the presidential campaign, we really heard a lot about immigration. We've heard it from every angle. Donald Trump has made that the issue of the presidential campaign. However, all of a sudden, another issue has come bursting on the scene here in the United States of America, and that's the issue of religious freedom. With the jailing of Kim Davis in Kentucky, all of a sudden, the political candidates are surging to the forefront. Some of them want to leave it alone. They don't want to touch it. But others of them are boldly coming to the forefront, realizing that this is really a fundamental issue about whether we are a free people or not. This has been lurking in the background actually for a long time, but more recently, since the Supreme Court ruled on same-sex marriage, it was inevitable that once the Supreme Court ruled that constitutional amendments stating that marriage must be between one man and one woman, when the Supreme Court said that those amendments were unconstitutional, that legitimatized same-sex marriage. Well, when you do that, the next step is conflict arises. People, and there are millions of them, that believe the Bible. And the Bible is crystal clear on the subject that same-sex marriage is an abomination to God. So sincere Christians who sincerely believe the Bible have been put in a position where they must decide whether they serve God or government. It's sort of been simmering below the surface until now. But with the stance that Kim Davis has taken, saying, I can't go there. My conscience won't let me issue marriage licenses to two men or to two women. I can't do it. Now a judge has thrown her into jail. But that's not the end of the story, because some of the foremost candidates in the present presidential race are now siding strongly with Kim Davis. I want you to hear now, we're going to have our open line as normal, but I felt like you should at least hear some of the things that are being said. First of all, we're going to Governor Mike Huckabee, and he is making some statements concerning the issue. Let's listen to what's being said here. Okay, while our technical folks are trying to give us a sound here, please help us out. I'll tell you what, let's come back to that. As soon as they give me the signal that they're ready to go, there's something wrong with our audio, and I want you to hear it. So we're going to be talking today about this critical issue because Mike Huckabee says this is the beginning of the criminalization of Christianity. Let's say, and already we've had to face this, but it's getting ready to become an avalanche. Let's say that I own a house. I want to rent the house. It's next door to my house. Let's say that a homosexual couple comes to rent my house. Do I have to rent it to them? Do I have to move in next door to my family? Homosexuals that are living in direct opposition to the scriptures. Now, the government, I know, has already given us the answer. The answer would be yes. If I have a photography business and they come to my business to hire me to film their wedding, do I have to do it? Well, the answer, again, is so far the government said, yes, you have to do it. And yet my religious convictions, I don't want to participate in a same-sex wedding that God says all that do this are an abomination. This is an abomination to God, the God that I revere, that I have submitted my life to. Now do I rebel against him so I can obey 5 Supreme Court justices? 5 out of the 9 said, yes, we have to go this direction. Well, that's where we are. Now, we're going to try it again just to see how we are. One more time. Let's try to go to Mike Huckabee right now.
Here, I'm wondering why
Not
it is okay for this clerk to do what she is doing, given that this is the law of the land.
Well, when you say it's the law of the land, can you quote the statute that has been passed by the people's elected representatives? No. The only law she's following is the Kentucky law, which by constitutional amendment defines marriage as a man and a woman. The specific form that she is required to fill out for a marriage license specifically requires male and female. Now, if the Kentucky legislature decides that they agree with the Supreme Court and they change the laws of Kentucky, that's a whole different thing. Well, but we're bordering on judicial tyranny here.
But
and
Governor, you know,
go ahead, Joe,
you know that the Supreme Court doesn't have to have Congress pass statutes for their interpretation of the Constitution. That immediately becomes law of the land and supersedes all state laws. And whether I agree with you or not on states being able to regulate this or not, anything that Kentucky passed becomes irrelevant as soon as the Supreme Court of the United States makes a constitutional determination, right? That's basic constitutional law.
No, that's not true. Look, you would have hated Lincoln because he disregarded Dred Scott's 1857 decision that said black people weren't fully human. He disregarded it because he knew that it was not operative. It was not logical. Jefferson warned against judicial tyranny, which he said would be the case if we ended up allowing a court ruling to become law without the other 2 branches coming into agreeing. When I was governor and the state Supreme Court had a ruling on school finance, we didn't just start writing new checks the next day. The legislature had to come up with a new funding formula. I signed it, and then we ordered the Department of Education to send new checks. The Supreme Court can determine something by way of review, according to Marbury versus Madison, but they can't implement it without enacting and enabling legislation. And I think we're getting close to what Jefferson said when he said that if we allow the judicial branch just to make up law without the people's elected representatives, you turn the Constitution into a thing of wax. And that's why I believe it's time for us to have a real clear understanding of what should be something that we learned in 9th grade civics, that the Supreme Court is not the supreme branch, it's the Supreme Court. And it certainly is not the supreme being. It cannot overrule the laws of nature and the laws of nature's God.
Wow. Well, that's what we're facing right now. Should we be a country where one person who would tip the balance, the vote was 4-4, one person held the balance of power, they voted for same-sex marriage? should we be able to have one person decide what the whole nation, 320 million people, believe about marriage? Should we have one person say that the Bible is wrong, to say that God is wrong and that he should be ignored, to say that God is a bigot, which is what the Supreme Court said. 5 judges ruled, 4 voted against the ruling. So all of a sudden we have people saying, wait a minute, stop, time out, hold on a minute. This is not what freedom means. 5 men cannot force me to change my religion. And that's what this really is amounting to. Now, I know this is open line, but we've got to take a couple more things. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold the comments of Ted Cruz to the next segment. Right now, we're going to go ahead and take a couple of phone calls until the end of this particular segment, and then we'll go to Ted Cruz, and after that, it'll be open line for all of you. Let's go now to Pam. Pam is calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Pam.
Hey, Irvin Baxter. Just wanted to call and tell you that I went to the Princeton Prophecy Conference, and I loved it. And, you know, we talk about all the crazy things going on in the world. We so need to know where we are as a country and how we have a God-given destiny. And I love you that you go to big churches, you go to little churches, and I can get to you, and you're just awesome. You labor so hard to present us the truth of the Bible and the prophecies in a way that we can all understand. And I love you. I'm a recipient of your work, and I just wanted to affirm you, just to encourage you, because you do such great work, and where would we be without you? Well,
Pam, that's so nice of you to say that. We appreciate that. You know, there at the conference in Princeton, our subject was America's God-given destiny. Yes. And I think that's one of the most edifying lessons I've done in a long time, because, you know, a lot of times we're talking about Armageddon, we're talking about the war that's coming that's going to kill 1/3 of mankind. But it really is nice to stop and say, okay, this is what the Bible has to say about the United States of America, and it has some good things to say about the United States of America. So everywhere I'm teaching that lesson, it's a brand new lesson, but it is certainly giving people some hope right now.
Yes, and don't we need it? It was very patriotic, too. I loved it. It really brought me to tears, the way you laid it out, and it's just so good. I don't think you're second to none. I don't think anybody could ever do what you do, and I'm so appreciative to be a part of Endtime, religion.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, and I promise you God can raise up plenty of people to take my place, but I hope I get to stay involved in his work. So anyway, thanks a lot. Sure appreciate the fine comments. And now that Pam has brought up the subject of the America God's Given Destiny DVD, we're making this brand new DVD because so many people ask the question, is the United States of America in the prophecies of the Bible? Some people are saying that the United States is Mystery Babylon. That is absolutely untrue. I can prove conclusively it's not true. However, we have started a fund called Another Jewish Holocaust Fund, and I believe it's America's destiny to stand by the nation of Israel. For every person that would give a gift of $500, we're going to give you this DVD. And we're not going to sell it, we're not giving it whatever, but if you're interested, give us a call.
Join Endtime Prophecy students in Jerusalem. Now, for the first time, you can study at the Jerusalem Prophecy College from the convenience of your own home through our new online learning system. Attend classes taught by Dr. Irvin Baxter and learn about the prophecies of the Bible that will come to pass in the near future. Interact with fellow students as you study the Bible and become equipped to effectively minister to others in the end time. Applications are now being accepted for the fall semester, which begins September 7th. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com for more information.
Attention Indianapolis and South Bend, Indiana. Irvin Baxter's coming to your area for an Endtime conference. He will be speaking on the subject America's God-Given Destiny. Endtime conferences are a great opportunity to meet Irvin and hear the latest events going on in Bible prophecy. Shop Endtime product and meet other people like you who are wanting to learn the prophecies of the Bible. Every time I go to an Endtime conference, I feel so energized, like one of the people that can be strong and do exploits, as Daniel 11:32 says. Go to endtime.com and under events, click the conference link or call 1-800-ENDTIME to find out more details about these conferences. We'll see you there.
I was just briefly mentioning America's God-Given Destiny. It's a brand new lesson, and we are just now winding up with the DVD for that lesson. We have set this aside because we believe God's given destiny for America is to stand by Israel and to preserve Israel. The Bible even teaches we will protect Israel all during the Great Tribulation. So we have decided to produce this special DVD showing all these things in the Scripture so that all of us as Americans can really understand what our God-given destiny is. So if you would like to know that, we want to help the Jewish people. Many of them are going to have to run for their life. The Great Tribulation is coming. They are going to be at the focal point of the Great Tribulation. We want to have the resources to help them. So if you would like to donate to that cause, anyone who will give $500 or more, you may receive a copy of the DVD. It will include a beautiful song written by one of our very close partners here, and also a staff member now with Endtime Ministries, Allison Huntley. And Allison has written a song, America's God-Given Destiny. It will move you, I promise you. I love this whole thing. Anyway, if you're interested, give us a call. The number to call is 1-800-ENDTIME. Now I want to get back to our DVDs here, and I want to go now to Mr. Ted Cruz. And I hope that our staff has that ready for me, because Mr. Ted Cruz had some very, very strong things to say. Let's see if our technicians are ready. Can we have that now?
Well, what happened today is an outrage. It is fundamentally wrong. For the first time, we're seeing a Christian woman thrown in jail for standing up for her faith. I'll tell you, I stand with Kim Davis, unequivocally. I stand with her and anyone else that the government is trying to persecute for standing up for their faith. This is fundamentally wrong, and it's inconsistent with the First Amendment of the Constitution. We are a nation that was formed by people fleeing religious oppression and coming to seek a land where we could worship free of the government getting in the way. And it is stunning what is happening here.
Here's what the other
I would
side
also
says.
point out,
sorry,
Meg.
I apologize.
Yeah.
You're done. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The other side says that...
Well, I was going to...
Sorry, our satellite delay. So the other side says that she can exercise her faith, but she shouldn't be in this role. Her job is to issue marriage licenses, so it's an impossibility. She can't just not issue them now that they're legal.
Well, but that's fundamentally wrong. The consequence of that statement, that standard, is that Christians can't hold public office, or if they do, they must be willing to violate their faith or go to jail. That is not America. That is not how this country works. And let me point out to all the politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, who are tut-tutting that if Ms. Davis doesn't want to follow this lawless judicial decree from the Supreme Court, that she should resign her office. Well, where have those voices been calling for the mayor of San Francisco to resign, who has declared San Francisco a sanctuary city, defying immigration laws? American citizens have been murdered by violent criminal illegal aliens because of the mayor's violation of the law. Or where are those voices calling for President Obama to resign? For 6.5 years, he has defied the law. immigration law. He has defied welfare reform laws. He's even defied his own Obamacare. When the mayor of San Francisco and President Obama resign, then we can talk about Kim Davis.
Well, what about that? A lot of people are saying that she should resign because she does not want to obey laws that she believes are unconstitutional. Is it unconstitutional to try to force a person to go against their faith? The First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of a religion or the free exercise thereof. The government of the United States has no power over an individual's sincere exercise of their religion. Our forefathers, our founding fathers, put that off limits. They had come out from the tyranny of England, and they had an official state religion there. They knew what it felt like to have the iron heel of persecution come down upon them. So they made the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of a religion, nor shall they take action against the free exercise of that person's religion. Now, we've got another statement from Mr. Ted Cruz, and I want you to hear this because this is so critical, so important, and open our minds up to what we really need to be thinking about this whole crisis right now.
Let me ask you about this, because one of the most persuasive points I think her detractors have is the Kentucky clerk, is that she was apparently offered, according to the New York Times, the chance to just have her deputies do it. She wouldn't have to do it. Now it would have to be under her authority. She'd have to allow them. And the deputies were prepared to do it, to issue the licenses. And she said no to that. So what are they supposed to do? What are same-sex couples supposed to do if you've got, the head clerk saying no one can do it because of my religious beliefs?
Well, but Megan, that's not right under Kentucky law. Number one, her name would be on it regardless, and she's saying it's inconsistent with her faith to put her name to it, to being part of it. Now, I would point out that under Kentucky law, individuals can go in any other county and get married, but beyond that, listen, this decision from the Supreme Court on marriage was fundamentally illegitimate. Chief Justice Roberts observed in dissent quite powerfully, this is not connected to the Constitution. This is not from the Constitution. And Justice Scalia, let me observe every viewer. I'll recommend for every one of your viewers to read Justice Scalia's powerful dissent, where he predicted this marriage decision was so lawless, was so much judicial activism, that state and local officials could be expected to defy it. That's what Justice Scalia said. Now, all the commentators are saying they're shocked that she's doing exactly what Justice Scalia said. It's not the job, as Justice Scalia said, of 5 unelected lawyers to be the rulers of 320 million Americans and to claim illegitimately the authority to strike down the marriage laws of all 50 states. That is lawless.
Right now, that is the law of the land, and Kim Davis sits in a jail for an undetermined amount of time. Senator Cruz, thank you tonight. Great to see you.
Thank you, Megan. Great to be with you.
Okay, well, we're getting down to, is our Constitution legitimate? Can it be altered? Can it be changed? What's religious freedom all about? Weighty issues, and all of us should take them seriously. God help us. God help the United States of America. Well, this is Open Line Day, and so the rest of the day is yours. I know normally I don't take stories and feature them on this day, but I just felt like with the casting into jail of Kim Davis, that we simply had to allow you to hear what some of the politicians are saying. There were other remarks from Rand Paul, from several of the leading politicians concerning this particular situation. And if we find a break in our calls, I may bring some of those things to you. But right now, this is your day, so let's get right back to the phones. Larry is calling from Arizona. Hello, Larry.
Hello?
What's on your mind today?
Hello?
Hello, Larry.
Yes. I was calling about the show that you were on Monday evenings. you're on a half hour every Monday evening.
Right.
And I was calling more or less for some clarification. I thought I heard you say that, we could take all the different religions of the world, examples like Muslim, Hindu, they all believe in the same God we do. We just call them by different names. And I said, well, surely you didn't mean that. And that's why I was calling to seek clarification on this.
Well, I'm so glad you did, Larry, because I do not mean that. I was simply saying that is the theory that's being embraced by many people in our world, such as George W. Bush. I have him on a video stating that he believes Muslims, Jews, and Christians all worship the same God. President Obama believes the same thing. However, I do not believe that at all. I don't believe it whatsoever because, first of all, Christians believe Jesus is God, and the Muslims and the Jews adamantly deny that he is God. So that's obviously an incompatible situation. So I'm so glad you called because I was saying what other people believe, but I was absolutely disagreeing with it.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for taking my call. I feel much better about it now.
Okay. Well, I do too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And sometimes when we're talking every day, sometimes there is a possibility that we could be misunderstood. So if you are ever concerned about anything, do not hesitate to call here and ask because I certainly do appreciate that. Let's get right back to the phones. Kay is calling from the Bahamas. Hello, Kay. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello, Pastor Baxter.
Hello.
I have two questions for you, if I may.
Okay.
One, we know the Bible says that prophets know in part and they prophesy in part. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question to you personally. Being a teacher of Bible prophecy, has anything changed concerning the 14 DVD series that you put out? Have you found anything new that has changed from your teaching back then to now? And then my next question is, I am a landowner and I am renting to a young woman. She's been renting from me for over 7 years, and recently within like 4 or 5 months, or it could be about 6 months, she's moved in a boyfriend. And she knows very well how my husband and I feel about the situation. I've told her about it on a few occasions. Should I just go and ask her to move from out of the apartment? Because she came to me last week and she says to me, oh, I'm pregnant, so I will be moving. And then a few days later, she was like, oh, I'm not pregnant. So it's obvious they are engaging in fornication. We are saved, and I want to live my life exemplary of the Bible. And so I know it's wrong what she's doing. It's just I'm kind of like stuck because our laws are quite different from the United States. And I know a lot of persecution is going to be happening soon, but in your opinion, should I just ask her to move on? What is your opinion?
Well, Kay, first of all, I think it was the Apostle Paul said, I wrote to you in an epistle not to keep company with fornicators. Yes. He said, however, I was referring to if any man who claims to be a brother is a fornicator, not to hold company with him, that he might be ashamed. But if you're going to get away from the fornicators of all the fornicators in the world, you'd have to leave the world. So to say that we cannot associate with anyone who's living a non-Christian life, I don't think we can say that. Now, if you write it into your contract when you rent that house that unmarried couples cannot live together there, or that same-sex couples cannot live together there, then I think you have a contract that would support you. But as far as going beyond that, I'm not sure I would be willing to tell you you have to do that. Hey, listen, Kay, you can either stay on and I can hold you over, or I'll try to answer your question after the break.
In a world where our culture is traveling down a road of spiritual mediocrity, do you want to be one of the few who travel the road of spiritual maturity? Then I recommend Endtime University. This 6-semester course will guide you through understanding the Bible, keys to spiritual growth, life and teachings of Jesus Christ, and Satan defeated, sonship restored. Watch the lessons at your own pace using the structured outlines. Use the quizzes and answers to test your comprehension. Receive a completion certificate when you finish each semester, and a diploma from Endtime University once you've completed all 6 semesters. Matthew 7:13 through 14 says, "Enter in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many will go in. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it." Endtime University will help you walk the straight and narrow path to spiritual maturity. Call 1-800-ENDTIME and ask about Endtime University today.
I want to introduce you today to what I call the Armageddon Hospital. It was October of 2010. The headline, "Israel builds world's largest underground hospital," immediately arrested my attention. When I read that it was being built in Haifa, Israel, I fully understood the implications of this announcement. Haifa is located at the western end of the plain of Megiddo, the prophesied site of the Battle of Armageddon. Would the world's largest underground hospital, specifically designed for use in time of war, actually become the hospital to which the wounded of the Battle of Armageddon would be brought? It was obvious to me that the answer to this question was undoubtedly yes.
Go to endtime.com and under Irvin's Thoughts, click the Rambam link to watch the video.
If you've not seen the Rambam Hospital video, it's free. You can watch it on our website, endtime.com. I would encourage you to do it. You will enjoy it. I'm going back to Kay. Kay, are you still with me?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, very good. I don't want to lead you astray because there are 2 things involved here. When you have someone, especially if it's right next door to you, then how much will that influence you and your family? For example, I personally would not be comfortable if I owned rental properties to rent to same-sex couples that were living an openly gay lifestyle. It is so abnormal. It is so perverted. And that doesn't mean that I wouldn't try to get people saved. I would try my best to witness, and I have. I actually had ex-homosexuals in the church that I pastored in Richmond, Indiana, and I was very happy to see what God did in their lives. So, you're walking a line here, trying to be like Jesus Christ in all of your dealings, but at the same time, if you have, for instance, a house right next door, you have a man and a woman living together, unmarried, and your children get to talking to those people and they think that's normal, then what is that doing? They may begin to like the people. What's that doing to their moral values? I think those are the types of questions that we have to ask when we make those decisions. Now, to go to your other question concerning the 14 DVDs, I don't know which edition you have, but have I changed anything? Almost nothing has changed because everything we teach in there, I only teach the things I'm sure about. If there are things that are speculative, then I say, I think this is right. I'm not absolutely certain I'm right on this. But most of the things in there, by now, I have proven every way that you can prove them, and I feel absolutely certain about them. In your particular set of DVDs, when you're talking about the 4 horsemen, this is one of the major things that God has given me additional light on. The 4 horsemen of Revelation chapter 6, the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, and the King James Version says the pale horse. But I had questions about that. I knew the white horse, the red horse, and the black horse. I knew I had the understanding on that as being Catholicism, communism, capitalism. But the last horse always seemed a little bit something wrong with it to me because it said the pale horse, and I couldn't figure out what is that because it said the rider on the pale horse was death and hell followed behind him. Finally, I said, well, I guess that just means what it says. the rider on the pale horse is death, and the sooner a person dies, the sooner they go to hell, and Satan wants them to die quickly so they don't have a chance to be saved. That was what I thought about it. But I was never totally comfortable. And so it's been, 3 or 4 years ago now that I decided to go back over that territory one more time. And I looked up the word that was translated pale, and it was chloros. Well, as soon as I saw that, I knew that the word chlorophyll means green. That's what makes the plants green. And the definition given in the Greek dictionary was green. And I thought, why did they translate it pale? And I realized at that time that they did it because when translators are trained, they're trained to, when they're translating, to make sure it makes sense. Well, here this translator is, he's describing horses. Well, who's ever seen a green horse? It made no sense. But he didn't realize these were not literal horses. These were symbolic of movements, of belief systems. And therefore, the fact that there's no such thing as a green horse had nothing to do with how it should be translated. Well, he changed it to pale horse because one of the definitions of chloros is pale green. So he wanted to get the green out altogether because he had never seen a green horse, and so he went to pale. However, I absolutely believe and know now that that was a horrible mistake on his part, and some of the newer versions of the Bible are actually translating that green horse now because green is the official color of Islam. So now we have Catholicism, communism, capitalism, Islamism. Now, I don't know whether your particular version of the tapes had the green horse development. My understanding of that is the one of the big things. It's the only thing that comes to mind that I have changed since we produced that series.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering my questions. We still love you here in the Bahamas. Can't wait to see you again. God bless you and your wife.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, Kay. Appreciate it very, very much. You know, when you study the prophecies of the Bible, now we do have many additional lessons since we did the original 14. We have actually, I think, 12 or 13 new DVDs. So if you're hungry for more material, don't hesitate to call and say, I'd like to have the additional DVDs. For instance, we've done one called Master Plan of the Dragon. We've done another lesson called Will Islam Rule the World? We have a lesson called Signpost of the Second Coming. We have one called To Sabbath or Not to Sabbath. And there are many others, and they're available to you. If you're interested, call 1-800-ENDTIME, and the operators will let you know what those are. They can give you the entire list. Let's get right back to the phones now. Let me see. Let's go to Ruth. Ruth's calling from Ohio. Hello, Ruth.
Hello, Pastor Baxter. This is Ruth in Ohio. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome,
I enjoy
Ruth.
your program many times a week, so thank you for your service to all of us out here in Radio Land.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding Kim Davis in Kentucky.
Yes.
And probably for other clerks of courts around the country. I'm wondering what the actual signature of the clerk of court's office represents on a marriage license. Is the clerk attesting that they have paid the fees for the license, that ID has been presented, birth certificate verified? Is there a question about homosexuality or heterosexuality on that marriage license? And I'm also wondering if the two people requesting a marriage license were heterosexuals and were known to assault others and her children or sell drugs, would she also feel obliged to withhold a marriage license? And I'm wondering if Mrs. Davis sees more into her signature than his legal status.
Well, I'm not sure I can answer all your questions because I've never met Mrs. Davis, and so I couldn't tell you in its entirety. However, obviously her signature says that they have met all the qualifications to be married. Now, once the Supreme Court ruled, Kim Davis simply quit issuing marriage licenses altogether, either
right.
Heterosexual or homosexual, because she understood that once she started, that there was going to be a firestorm, so she just declined to issue marriage licenses altogether. Now, the Kentucky license, I do know this much. It still says that the Kentucky law says marriage is between one man and one woman. And it may say that on the license. I think that's what Governor Huckabee stated. I'd have to check that to be absolutely positive. But, of course, the Supreme Court is now saying that their word goes over the top of all the states. But anyway, I'm not sure I'm answering all your questions because I don't think I can. I've never read their license, and every state has their own license. Marriage has usually been a state function, and many people believe the Supreme Court stepped out of line trying to assert their opinion on the individual states, but I don't know the answer to all your questions.
And I understand that piece of the question as well, but I'm also wondering if what she is attesting to by signing that marriage license is that fees have been paid and birth certificates offered, the basics, and not whether or not somebody is heterosexual or not.
Well, I don't know the answer to that now.
It may be being made more than what it needs to be.
Well, I personally...
And she could still maintain her beliefs.
I personally would not issue a marriage license to homosexuals.
Mm-hmm. I would have a hard time with that as well.
So that's what... I understand what she feels. I could not do it.
Right. And I think that's legitimate, and we would probably all have different boundaries for different situations, and that's pretty much up to each of us to decide what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, but the one thing is this: when the government oversteps its bounds, unless someone takes a stand, then there's no end. For example, Martin Luther King had to take a stand. When they were trying to make blacks and whites have separate restrooms. I was in Louisiana back in 1966, 1967. I was holding revivals. I was a young evangelist. And I'll never forget, one day I looked up, we were in this area somewhere, and I saw a restroom, and it said whites only. I'd been raised in the North. I'd never seen such a thing. And I looked at that, and I was absolutely stunned when I realized what was really the practice down south. Now, I think by then it had been changed, but still, I was so grieved to think that people, just because of the color of their skin, they would be treated differently. And I wondered, what that would do to a person to live under that kind of a yoke. So somebody had to stand up and say, I'm sorry. I mean, Rosa Parks had to say, I'm not standing up and giving my seat to a white man. I'm not moving to the back of the bus. Sometimes there are unjust laws that are simply wrong, but yet the powers that be are for those laws. And unless someone, especially when it violates your religion, that's when someone's got to say, I'm sorry, I cannot obey that because there's an authority higher than you, government. And when one person does that, sometimes that's all it takes to break the back of unjust laws.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand, and thank you for talking with me. And it's a battle we all face each day with different boundaries. And I hope that somewhere something can be worked out with Mrs. Davis and the county there in Kentucky. But we're also all bound by the laws of our country, and some we like and some we don't like. And that's part of life as well.
It is, but once a law tells you that you have got to do something that God tells you you must not do, now all of a sudden you have a lower law trying to supersede a higher law.
Right.
You always obey the law above you until it violates the law above it. That's the rule that we all have to follow. Hey, listen, Ruth, got to let you go. Thank you very much for your very nice call. You're listening to Politics and Religion, and we'll take more of your calls as soon as we get back.
One day, I was listening to Politics and Religion, much like you are now, when a commercial came on about the Salvation Package. It's a set of 4 DVDs in which Irvin teaches about topics like Nicodemus' question to Jesus, what must I do to be born again? I remember Irvin said in the commercial, "If you don't love the truth, don't get this because it will make you mad." Well, I was hungry for the truth, so I did get it, and I am so glad I did. I'd been studying the Bible for many years, but learned there was more in the scriptures about what it means to be born again. When the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Jesus said, "Take heed of false teaching, for many will come in my name and deceive many." Now I know what Jesus was talking about when he made that statement, and I won't be deceived. The salvation package changed my life and my eternity. I'm so thankful for that commercial I heard just a few years ago. That's why today I wanted to record one too, for someone out there listening, searching for the truth. You will find it in the salvation package. Get the 4 DVD set for $65 or the individual DVDs for $20 each.
This present crisis with Kim Davis is making all of us appraise our stance. Could religious persecution come to the United States of America? We know that it's coming to the world. The Bible explicitly prophesies a time of great tribulation, such as never been before, nor ever again shall be. The early church lived under this kind of persecution. They were beaten because they preached in the name of Jesus. They were told that they were forbidden. You must not preach in the name of Jesus Christ anymore. And their reply was, "You judge. Should we obey God or should we obey men?" Now, all of us may be faced with that situation. Kim Davis is dealing with it now. She's dealing with it the way she feels that she must. But don't think it couldn't happen to you and me. It certainly could happen. For example, already, if you're invited to pray at a public venue, many people tell you you must not use the name of Jesus. You can say God, but don't call him Jesus, because that's going to upset some people. That will offend people. And yet the Bible says, in all you do in word or deed, do all in the name of Jesus. And Jesus said, if you're ashamed of me, I'll be ashamed of you. So just because there's a law, that does not mean that law is right. Now, one more time, here's a good rule of thumb that's really helped me. You always obey the authority over you until it asks you to disobey the authority over it. For example, the Bible tells us in some circumstances that children are to obey their parents, of course. But if your parents tell you to do something sinful or evil, then you cannot obey them. And the Bible also says that a wife should obey her husband. But yet, if he tells her you can't go to church, I'm asking you to involve yourself in immoral, ungodly things, she can't obey him. And I've known of people, husbands would beat their wives to try to make them not go to church. Well, that's a horrible situation. But you can't obey the authority above you if it's asking you to disobey the higher authority above it. So that's the law. So if our government says that we cannot openly speak against homosexuality on the air, I can't obey that, because I'm determined to tell people the truth. And I know I already make a lot of people nervous, but when I talk about it, I do my best to not be mean-spirited about it. But to me, I fail people if I lead them to believe they can be saved, living a homosexual lifestyle. I don't love those people. I hate those people, because I am dooming them to believe a lie, because you can't be saved and lead a homosexual lifestyle. If I tell you you can be saved and you can commit adultery on the side, I'm not being a good guy. I'm being a horrible person. I am contributing to your ultimate damnation. If I tell you that you can live together unmarried with someone in an intimate relationship, and I tell you you can do that and still be a good Christian, I'm lying to you. That's a lie. It's simply not true. And I am not loving you. I am actually hurting you terribly because I don't tell you the truth. So, but we always have to speak the truth in love. Let's get back to the phones. Alan is calling from New Zealand. Hello, Alan.
How you doing today, Evan?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
A couple of quick comments before I ask my question. It's 1995 since you did your first Endtime video series. I know you had the chart out before then, and it was very early in 1996. I seen it, and it was really hard to believe it's almost 20 years since we've seen those original series that you did.
Yeah, that's been a while back. I think the first Understand the End Time charts, actually, I think they were printed in 1994, 1995, maybe 1995.
Yeah, well, it's been almost 20 years since I've seen those, and so you have updated some of those things, and I think that's probably one of the things that most people like, is that as you do those every so often, the next lot you do is 2000, done them since then. But it's the newer information that comes out, and that's why the second lot of DVDs that you continue to do is very important for people to upskill themselves. Now, one of the things you've been talking about recently is your political candidates. I think one of the things that I would look at if I was an American over there is I would look at their affiliations with either secret societies or their affiliations with the Trilateral Commission, CFR, all those things, which I know you have looked at and spoken about, but I think that's pretty important to know who's behind these guys and what direction they will be taking your country. I think that's pretty important. And leading from that would be like what Carol Quigley said when he was quoting about the Whitney family who helped found the Skull and Bones in America there. He was saying the idea given to the American people is you give them two political parties, but you control both of them, and you always get the same result that you want. So that was just a thought there.
Oh, well, it is, Alan, and I'm glad you brought it up because basically both parties have been controlled by the same people. Of the Council on Foreign Relations, 50% of all cabinet members in the last 50 years have come from the Council on Foreign Relations, whether the Democrats were in power or the Republicans were in power. That's the reason sometimes it seems like we're voting for Tweedledee or Tweedledum. Now, I hope that's not the case this year. We're going to have to wait and see. We're asking God to give us someone who will return America to a base, a godly base. That's what we're asking God to do. And we all should be praying very sincerely about that at this present time, because we're in the season when we're getting ready to pick the next president of the United States of America.
Now, talking about the sixth, one of the seals, the red horse urn, this is a bit of information that I discovered. And I know we talk about how it came from Karl Marx, but it's quite interesting because you lived in Indiana, and there was a man who came from England, I think it was Scotland originally. His name was Robert Owen, and his son went on to found the Smithsonian Institute in America, or had a part in that. But he set up the original communist socialist commune in New Harmony, Indiana in 1828, which is 20 years before Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, socialism had been a movement long before that. However, during the French Revolution, their slogan was equality. I'm trying to think right now off the top of my head. They had three words: brotherhood, equality, and liberty. And it was so interesting that when they reached one of their big anniversaries, they had Alexander Solzhenitsyn come to speak at France. And he stood up and he said the French Revolution should never have happened. He was there to celebrate the French Revolution. He said it should never happen because your slogan is inherently wrong. You cannot have liberty if you mandate equality. Because liberty means people are free to work hard and excel, or they're free to not work as hard and do other things with their life. And so he said, if you turn people loose, you will never have perfect equality if you have liberty. If you mandate equality, then you must take away their liberty. And that's the reason socialism is so bad, is because they mandate equality. Hey, Alan, got to let you go. I've got other people on the line here. Thanks a lot. Always good to hear from you in New Zealand, one of our great friends there. Let's go now to William. William's calling from right here in Texas. Hello, William.
Yes, Dr. Baxter. What some people fail to understand is the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. The powers that are not reserved to the federal government or to the several states are reserved to the people. The Supreme Court erred greatly, and what they should have done is referred this back to the individual legislatures, said, hey, y'all need to visit this issue. This is not a federal issue. This federal judge is usurping authority that belongs to the Kentucky any state legislature and to the people that elect them. Unless I misread my Constitution.
Yeah, William, I'm glad you brought that up. That everybody needs to go read the 10th Amendment, because it states that the only powers that go to the federal government are those that are specifically granted to it by the states. The rest of the powers are reserved, but the federal government has become bigger and bigger, and they've tried to take over all of the states' powers, and the states have allowed that to happen to a degree. And you're right, the federal government has no right to even be ruling on marriage. That's one of the things that should be left at the state government level. Anyway, interesting. Well, let me see. I'm sorry, but we're out of time. And I know we've got callers yet waiting in line. Please call back on Tuesday because I want to hear from you. Nevertheless, I want to thank all of you for participating today. And, you know, as Christians, as we feel the pressures of persecution coming against us, we want to make sure that we stay godly and humble and pure and loving in our attitude. But being loving does not mean we can't stand for the truth. The Bible tells us we should stand for the truth, speak the truth in love. And that's what we want to always try to do. And if you're out there and you have lived a homosexual lifestyle or you are in one right now, I want to tell you, Jesus Christ wants to save you just as much as he does anybody else. And he is powerful enough. Calvary and the salvation that Jesus Christ purchased on that cross is stronger than any addiction, whether it be homosexuality, drugs, alcohol, no matter what the addiction may be. Jesus Christ is stronger, and he died on that cross so all of us could receive his power. I want to, in closing today, remind you that we've got about 30 days left to sign up for our tour to Israel. We do have some seats left, not too many, but we have enough, I think, for you. So if you'd like to go with us, the number to call is 1-800-Endtime. Simply ask to speak to someone about the tour. My daughter, Jana, and her daughter, my granddaughter, Holly, they're the ones that organize the tour. You'll love speaking to them. They're both sweet and wonderful people. They'll help you. They'll answer your questions. So if you'd like to inquire about going to Israel with Judy and I, November 12th through the 23rd, 12 wonderful days. If you'd like to do that, give us a call right now. The number to call, 1-800-Endtime. That's 1-800-363-8463. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. It is a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening on a daily basis.
If you would like to listen to archive shows, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference in your area, order Endtime resources, watch our TV show, or subscribe to our free weekly e-news, call 1-800-Endtime or go to endtime.com. and take advantage of what our site has to offer.
Connect to Endtime Ministries by partnering with us and help this message make a global impact.
Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to all of our loyal partners, listeners, and friends for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.